My parents and twin sister expelled me at 16. I struggled in a tent for years. They came to my house unannounced with my sister's family and demanded to move in. At 16, my sister requested my parents to put me out since there's no room. After 12 years of fighting for my own place, they're letting my sister move in with me because she's pregnant with her fourth. Since childhood, my parents' toxicity has affected me at 28. My annoying twin sister. People claim twins support each other. My twin pushes me down whenever she can. If childhood. Bullying wasn't enough, she returned. She wants to live into my house with her family again despite throwing me out at 16. She's always narcissistic. Poor parenting is the main factor. My parents always wanted a daughter but got a son. To my face. They said they would have killed the pregnancy if it was just me. They had to deliver me since I was a female. I owe my sister my life. My sister always tried to rub her entitlement on me. Growing up unwanted in a household is easy to imagine. Everything revolved on my sister. We were the same age, but I couldn't touch her things. Her clothing change occasionally, while I only get one pair at Christmas and one on our birthday. If we didn't share our birthday, they wouldn't celebrate. I realized I wouldn't exist without my sister's birthday. I got the bare minimum, and the two were not in love but must hide from their relatives. My grandfather was my only childhood joy. He was the only one who saw through their BS. Unfortunately, Dad died when I was 13. I had the worst day ever. I had nobody to protect me. We lived in a little suburban house. Sister and I shared a room. It was more like having a bed with a tiny closet under it in my sister's room. She packed the room with clothes, toys, and posters. My parents said they were doing plenty for me, so I couldn't complain. My sister didn't like me in her room. I could only sleep in the room at night. She's a girl and needs solitude, so I had to lie on the couch. While I was sick. I urgently wanted to leave home at 18. My relatives seemed more determined to get rid of me. A 19-year-old loser knocked out my sister at 16. After failing 3 times in 8th grade, his parents kicked him out. My parents married them, and my father got him a factory cleaner job. Father is a mechanic at an automaker. I had to leave my room for him because my parents brought him home. But our house had 2 rooms and a little living area. My father told me he sleeps on the couch when my mom's snoring is unbearable in winter. I was told to find housing. I was further upset when my loser Bill said, "Dude, it's easy to find a place. I managed to put my life together when my parents kicked me out at 15. Has a family now." I sighed. Yeah, if living off as a junkie means getting life together and knocking up a minor means family, then sure. Most of my relatives live far away, and my parents warned me not to visit since it would expose their toxicity. I asked some friends for their couches to sleep on, but were unsuccessful. Why would their parents let me in when my parents kicked me out and one of my classmates lived in a garage? After a few months, his parents came and booted me out. After sleeping on a sidewalk bench for a few days, the police took me home. My parents lied about my runaway status. They housed me that night. My father gave me a junkyard tent and told me to set up camp in the backyard. It was a prize for staying silent and not visiting family as ordered by the police. Sleeping in a tent was safer than outside. Winter was awful, but summer was fine. It was so chilly one day that I thought I might die. Knocking on my residence was ignored. I needed aid badly. Knocked on my parents' bedroom window. My dad shouted from inside not to bother him, or he'd knock me down. I was so miserable I wanted to die. I wept all night. I looked for a sleeping job the next day. I was offered a place to sleep and meals by a bakery owner who needed a worker for his 20-mile-away factory. They baked it at home and wanted help. I could reside in their backyard if I cleaned it up. I concurred. The place was a mess with flour and sugar. They also support rodents. But my life was at its lowest. I accepted that job. I left with my stuff. My sister even stated, "Happy to see you go. No room for you." Nobody even asked where I was heading. It was habitable after I cleaned. After a while, I felt comfortable living there, despite the rodents coming for food. Dropped out of high school. Final year exams were still months away. My buddies advised me to stay in my parents' backyard and finish high school, but I gave up. I worked hard and lived off my salary. I understood I needed to upgrade to acquire a better job. Gained some skills. My dad is a mechanic, so I played with his tools. Worked for parents. They didn't have to buy me toys, and I helped Dad plumbing. After saving, I took a course and worked in a car plant. I worked hard to ascend the ladder. My job is supervisor. One of my old pals needed to sell his house fast. Having divorce troubles, he needed an immediate buyer. I wasn't interested in buying a 3-bedroom property, but he offered a huge discount and split the down payment. I got it 2 weeks ago. Unexpected guests arrived at my new residence today. Yes, my parents, sister, and Bill. It surprised me because I was NC with them for years. They didn't contact me. My house is about 15 kilometers from theirs, so they wouldn't have bumped here lightly. I'm not in touch with any relatives in person or on social media, but one is probably the neighbor. One of my neighbors is still my friend. He may have alerted my folks about my house's Facebook photos. I don't know how they found the address. Dad knew where I worked, so he probably got the address. They broke into my residence when I opened the door. Parents congratulated and praised me, smiled and offered a chair. I'm still waiting for furnishings. My only furniture is a bed, chairs, and a table. My parents sat down and asked about the deal. They were amazed that I bought a house at 35 while they were renting. My sister and her deadbeat husband nonchalantly walked through my house like they were moving in. What happened? Why did they suddenly appear in my life? They checked on you without saying anything. Funny, huh? They checked on me when I needed them least. They sporadically updated me about their lives. Dad has hypertension. Sister has 3 children, 14, 9, and 4, and is pregnant again. Well, good for her. I sat nodding, debating whether to yell or politely ask them to leave. My mother asked if I was engaged or dating. It's not your business. Her question, why are you cranky? Is everything okay? I replied everything was good until they arrived. She chuckled and offered to help me move if it was too much. My sister then says, I've decided. We'll take the balcony bedroom. I'm excited for my bathroom. The kids can have the other room? I freaked out. My sister stated, you're single with a 3-bedroom house. You need less space. Getting a bedroom is a big deal after living in a tent. This house is so big that I can accommodate all of us. My parents cut her off in between and asked her to attend to her youngest son who wailing for attention. I looked at my parents and asked them what the hell she just said. Dad told me that accommodating 7 heads in a small house was getting difficult. My sister's eldest son, 14, was sleeping on the couch while the middle one slept with my parents and the youngest one with my sister. On top of that, she is pregnant again, so they need a big house. Mom said, and you know, you own a big house now. Can't you take your sister with you? Before she completed her sentence, I yelled, hell no. I'm not going to take anyone inside my house. My sister screamed at me that I owed her this to bring me into this world. The same old thing, Mom and Dad would have never birthed you if I wasn't there. You owe me a place here. That house has become so crowded I can't even breathe, I said. Yes, thanks to you. And thanks for bringing me into this world. Now get out. Before anyone could say anything, I asked them to leave my house now. Dad tried to use his tough method, raised his voice and said, it was my duty as a man of the house to take care of my sister. I yelled back at him that I held no obligations to take care of my sister, but as a parent, they were obliged to take care of me but faltered. Now he was okay with his grandson sleeping on the couch, but when I asked for it, he refused it and threw me out of the house. I ranted about how I survived with rodents at my employer's garage and how I had been living in a dingy apartment for a decade but none of them came to check on me. My mom started sobbing and tried to hug me. I blocked her and asked them to leave. Bill was like, man up, bro. I have also lived that life for so many years. I never complain. You have such a big house. You are single. What are you going to do with so much space? I gestured at him to shut up. My sister started cussing me for shouting at her husband. I said, well then get out if you don't want me to knock him down. I chased them out of my house without letting them speak a word. I'm fuming with anger. They were forever toxic and narcissistic and now they have turned greedy, but I'm not 16 yo anymore who would follow their orders like a puppet. If they pester me further, I won't hesitate to call the cops on them. Update 1. My sister and her junkie husband broke into my house. BTW, some of you asked in the comment if my sister offered to pay rent. The answer is a big no. She hasn't, and she can't afford rent. She and her junkie are freeloaders and child milling machines. They have been piling upon my parents for 12 years, and now they want to do it with me. Not that my parents are happy providing for her. I saw the frustrations in their eyes when they last visited me. However, instead of just throwing her out, they are offloading those lazy bums to my shoulder. A week after the first encounter with them, my mom showed up at my house again. This time she didn't beat around the bush and told me I should put my guard down and let my sister move in with me. I said no way. She basically repeated the same stuff, that it was difficult to accommodate so many people in a small house. Blah blah. Still no from me. Then she switched her gear and tried to threaten me. I should have taken the hint right away. She said, see honey, you live alone in this big house and you're gone for 12 hours a day. What if someone breaks into your house? If a family lives here, it would be so safe for you. Besides, you'll get a hand on cleaning the house and doing the dishes and the laundry. I said for the last time, no, and go away. I don't want any of you at my house. Just a few days later, one of my neighbors told me he saw a pregnant woman with a man and a young boy loitering around on my premises. They were peeping in from the window. wandering around the backyard, and it felt like they were trying to sneak in. He is an old man. He sits by his front porch for the whole of the afternoon. When they noticed my neighbor was staring at them, they went away. He came to inform me as a goodwill gesture. I thanked him and gave him my number. I requested him to call me if he saw them ever again. My house was not guarded with cameras. I was intending to install it over the weekend. Who knew they would break in before that? Just 2 days later, I got a call from this elderly neighbor saying he suspected someone had broken into my house. I rushed home in a panic. He was right. My sister and Bill had broken into my house from the backside window. She was like, "We didn't have any other options than this. You were being a jerk and not allowing us. Now we live here and you suck it up." I was in shock. I mean, how far she went to rub her entitlement onto my face. Bill came outside of the room in which they had made their bedroom. He was like, "It was pretty smooth, huh?" Without thinking twice, I charged at Bill. My sister came in between and I dragged her aside. I punched him in the face. Their 14-year-old son attacked me with a bottle and my head started bleeding. The blow was not severe and I was in my senses, on the verge of blackout, but the rage kept me on. They all panicked seeing the blood. My sister called up my parents and told them what happened. Bill and his son started cleaning the mess. My neighbor called the cops. My sister and Bill started apologizing and begged me to spare their son from being arrested. I said all of you would go down with him. The cops arrived and took my statement. My sister denied all the allegations of breaking in and assaulting me. She said she was visiting my house with her family. Her son played a prank on me and I accidentally slipped and hurt my head. I was mad at them, and that's why I was falsely framing them. What a liar. Meanwhile, my parents arrived and they forced me to drop the charges against them. They all ganged up to prove me a liar and said I was using the cops to extract my grudge against my sister. Thank God my neighbor pitched in and gave his statement, and based on that, the cops arrested them. They had to spend the night behind bars because my parents didn't have the money to bail them out. The next day they were presented for trial. I went to the hospital and got my wounds dressed. The doctor scanned it for internal injury. I had to take a couple of days off to nurse my wounds. I pressed the assault charges on them and also claimed compensation for my loss, and the court agreed that they should bear it. Meanwhile, my parents tried all means to make me drop the charges, but I threatened to sue them for planning the assault on me. Her son is a minor, so he was dealt with according to the juvenile law. He got a week in a juvenile facility, and his parents would have to pay for restitution, lost wage, and medical bills. Sister and Bill were fined heavily, but they pleaded to trade off a part of it with community service. It's been a week since then, and it has been silent. I hope they have got their lesson and they should stay away from me. Update 2. Looks like my parents are not off my back yet. Yesterday they showed up at my house again. I slammed the door in their face. They stood outside for almost an hour requesting me to hear them out. Finally, I had to let them in. I wish I could just yell from the window and threaten them to knock them down like Dad did to me 12 years ago. Anyways, I asked them why they were again at my door. They both started sobbing and said they needed my help. I said if this has to do anything with my sister, then count me out. They said it was about them. Dad goes, "You see, I'm growing old and fragile. I cannot work as before. Our house hasn't been repaired in many years. Everything is falling apart." I cut him in between and said, "Come to the point." He and Mom wanted to move in with me. As a responsible son, I should take them in. I should have if they were a responsible parent. But they were not. I asked them what would happen to their house and if they're going to terminate the lease. They said they're going to give that house to my sister. I was like, "Oh cool, you guys have taken an alternate route to exploit me. Earlier you tried to dump sister on my back. That plan failed. Now you want to pile on. For the one last time, my house is not up for grabs. Not for anyone." They said my sister was offering to pay me the rent for living in my house, which I can use to pay the mortgage. I said I don't need her rent. She doesn't have to be bothered about my mortgage problem. She should instead look out for herself. Mom started crying that it was becoming very difficult for my sister to make ends meet. She doesn't even get proper sleep because her children sleep in the same room. I said it's not my problem if she is mindlessly expanding her family without financial planning. They were like, "What could we say? You're not agreeing to anything. Neither do you want to take in your sister. Nor you were agreeing for us. You should at least let us move in with you. The house is too big for a single man." I said I don't plan to remain single forever. They tried to emotionally manipulate me that I should take care of my aging parents. I screamed karma is real. "Remember how you threw me out of the house? This is what you get back in return." I opened the door for them, and they left with bitter faces. I don't care what they call me, but I'm not going to be a doormat and give in to their demands. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Rejected my daughter's Father's Day gift because I'm still angry about my ex-wife's affair that my daughter hid from me. After making her cry, I realized my mistake. My ex-wife, 40F, and I, 41M, have been divorced for a year now because she had an affair. She herself confessed to her affair a year later and moved in with her affair partner, who she's also now married to. I was pretty distraught with the whole thing. We also have a daughter, 17F. My daughter knew about the affair, but she told me she hid it from me because she didn't want to break up the family. It really hurt me that she hid it from me for so long, but I moved on. My daughter still apologies for it, but I've told her it's all right. My daughter today gave me a Father's Day gift, which was a handwritten letter and a gift. I was in no mood for gifts, so I told her to keep it to herself. My daughter seemed a bit shocked and she went to her room, and I think she was crying as she went to her room. Was I the A? Comments. MLK 154. Yes, Emo. You say you told her it's all right. You say you moved on. How do your actions live up to those words? At least be honest with yourself, and then her. Either move on or don't. But don't say everything's all right and then not accept a gift from your daughter. Plus maybe factor in she's a kid and in a tough spot between her parents when you make some of these evaluations. Gone to Flin Flon, very few adults would have the courage to speak up in this scenario, never mind a kid who probably didn't want to hurt her dad. She needs your grace, and you need to show her how a person can move forward when life is difficult. Uda. Hot_mess forever. Yes, sorry for what happened to you, but Uda. Can you imagine the position she was in? A child? Your child? She was afraid her home would break. Her nightmare came true. And you did this? You told her it's okay, and then crapped on her as if this was her fault. Shame on you. I get this is still raw for you, but what about her? Smy 88, seriously? Apu, do you expect a 17-year-old teenager to choose between her mother and her father? She was probably scared she would be hated by one of her parents. It's not her fault, like WTF? It was the mother's affair. She had nothing to do with it and probably needs support as well. Jesus, dude. Killer whale shark, they've been divorced for a year, so she found out 14? 13? That's still middle school. A child shouldn't be in charge of their parents' marriage. UDA just wanted to provide a quick update. I did feel guilty after rejecting my daughter's gift yesterday, and after reading a few comments, it confirmed that I was in awe. I went to her room yesterday and apologized for everything. It really hurt me that I made her cry that much. I told her that I didn't mean it, and we had a chat. I got the gift and the letter was really sweet and heartfelt, and I thanked her. I felt really touched after reading it, and I will preserve it forever. For the rest of the day, I took her out on a shopping trip, and then in the evening we went to theaters to watch a movie. She seemed very happy. We had one more serious chat where I told her it wasn't her fault at all. She said she still feels very guilty about hiding the whole affair from me. Because even though she hated her mom for the affair, she was worried about exposing the affair because of how the whole family would fall apart. I told her that she shouldn't feel guilty about anything, and it's not her fault at all, and it's only her mom's fault. We then talked a bit about her mom, and she agreed that if there's one thing she learned from the entire thing, it's not to emulate her mom when she's an adult. I agreed, and also told her it was unfortunate that she got such a mom. I told her we both need individual therapy to deal with the divorce and her mom's selfish actions, and my daughter was open to it, so we will start looking for a therapist soon.